I'm Retera. I'm the guy that ruins Warcraft, and I was looking at this building right here, and I was thinking, this is a 3D model someone made of some kind of fancy-looking thing here that I think was called Sheep Processor, and it has a building, camera, animation. It looks pretty good, and yeah, this is on the Hive Workshop, and this was created in 2004. Apparently, it was updated in 2009. I don't know what they did in 2009, but this is created in 2004, so this is 21 years ago. Someone had the idea, wouldn't it be fun on Warcraft 3 to have a goblin sheep processor? I just randomly saw this file. This is made by somebody called Grey Archon. I don't know who that is. I was just on the Hive Workshop. I was looking at that. And I thought, what a classic example of the difference between then and now. Like, is there anybody making goblin sheep processor? I feel like somewhere along the way we got like the thing where the reasonable smart people were playing Warcraft as a way to have fun seemed to go away. I don't know why, but I feel like the kind of human being who makes goblin sheep processor today, instead, that kind of human being probably works in some kind of company getting told they're supposed to use more AI than they do to get their job done, and as a result, they're less effective at getting their job done, or something like that, in some sort of miserable existence. And, I'm not sure that I'm blameless in this. When I think about my own life, I don't know, I'm not really sure that my life is how it's supposed to be. I don't know that I would tell someone that everything I have done is entirely right. It probably is the case that not everything that I have done is right, but I was thinking to myself, I'm Retera, trying to rewrite Warcraft in Java sometimes on the weekend, and I was thinking to myself how, if you think about life, you think about reality. Reality is, it's like a timeline. You can think about life as a timeline. So it's interesting to think there are some absolutes in existence. Sometimes there's a lot of fake information on the internet, but some things are not fake. Okay, so I was born and I exist. I am human. That is true. Not sure who else is, but I am. So, and we know that at some point in time, and we don't know exactly when this is, but there will be a time that I will die. We don't know what that time is. We hope that that's really far in the future, but it is completely inevitable that will happen. There is zero doubt that will eventually happen, right? Because I'm a human, and every human before me has had the same. Some people say that AI will become so intelligent it will solve aging, and then people will not die anymore. I think that's probably stupid and false, partly because if the AI does figure that out, they're going to give that to the billionaires, and they're not going to give that to me. So I'm going to be watching immortal Elon Musk prepare for his next 10,000 years while I write my will when I'm 80 years old. That's probably what's going to happen. So we know that there's this timeline, right? And you can start to use that to reason about, like, okay, if we know that's over here, then what's, it's sort of like if we have like a "you are here" kind of sign, you are here. I can think about, like, okay, so what's supposed to happen? Have things gone wrong? Are things maybe not how they're supposed to be? Or some things how they're supposed to be? That's interesting. What are the things? What matters? What actually matters on here? And it's very interesting. What is the substance of this timeline? So I'm pretty sure that between these two, maybe I'll change the color of my line here. Between these two right here, there was a point in time where we got to have some kind of social media. Okay, we're not really sure what it is, or evil sentient AI. Okay, so something happened here in the last maybe 20 years or something. Something is not quite right here in this part. People are still figuring out what that is. They don't know. They have no idea. But it's quite likely that between there and here something happened. I think that's logical. I think that's probably accurate. So it's interesting to think about what's true and what's not, because actually, if you knew what's true and what's not, you could get some really interesting some thoughts about what to do. I think there are a lot of people that are not thinking about what to do. I'm usually forgetting to think about what to do. Other times, I even forget about what's right and wrong. You know, I think that you'd want to remember those things if you could, but I don't always remember those things. No, I wouldn't claim that I was some kind of amazing person doing that. I just, you know, it's good to try to do the best you can do. So we know that this is kind of where the world is. So what are some predictions, some real ones we have for the stuff on the right over here? What do we think is going to happen? So I think that within this time, and I don't know exactly when, we know people will try to keep going as much as they can on into the future. You know, the world is an ever-changing place. But what do we think is going to happen here? What are some real predictions? So I know that I don't know. I have a hard time with this. I don't actually know the future. I'm looking at this line and I'm thinking, well, obviously I'll just draw in right here. Boop, here's what happens. What is that? Where are we going? So in the near short term, hopefully, somewhere over here, I like the idea of open source the Warcraft 3. Okay, open source Warcraft 3. But this is actually a meme because it is quite possible. Okay, let me just take a second. It is quite possible that in reality, okay, we actually have open source Warcraft 3 in the past. Now everyone watching this is going to be like, what? Open source Warcraft 3? No, we don't. But what is open source Warcraft 3? What does that really entail? So I like to joke about that on the internet because I think it's a good idea. But you know, I've worked on a lot of things and I've done a lot of stuff with hobby software. And to be honest, sometimes I just go around and tell myself that I am the champion and I am successful and I don't really care anymore. You know, if I look at, like, let's see if this launches right now. We'll see if this launches. Whatever this is, nobody else has this on their computer. They have no idea. They don't know what it is. And it has a long loading time, but look at this. Look at this. Running from source code. I got some big lag spike. I don't even know what it is. What are we doing here? Microsoft. What are we doing, Microsoft? Yeah, I don't know. I'm hitting some kind of huge lag spikes. I'm not quite sure what to make of that. We could actually close the program. Or we could hope that it'll recover. I don't know that it'll recover, though. I have my doubts. Okay, so it's not recovering. So one of the thoughts of that would be maybe too many internet tabs. I had this stuff about Orb of Slow being broken that was open. I don't know. I had some other junk that's too much stuff. I'm not quite sure. Let me try that once more. But it might be that our computer's not going to handle it. It was really lagging. So that's interesting. So obviously, oh yeah, how about this one? This is running a little bit better, right? Oh, once I start moving the mouse, it really struggles. I was trying to say it chugs along and it struggles at the same time, and I said it chuggles. It makes me want to take a nap. Alright, so, yeah, I'm not sure. It seems like the frame rate is just really bad on this computer. I should have bought a computer with a graphics card, but I thought, you know, when you're running some code from 20 years ago, maybe you don't need that. Anyway, so I've got other videos where I run that and it actually works. Yeah, I don't know what we're doing right now, but oh, maybe it's because I have this open. Yeah, okay, sorry. I was doing some 3D model editing. That's probably using up all my CPU over here in Retera Model Studio. Let me just close this, whatever I was doing with the flying sheeps over there. That'll probably get my processing power back. That would probably be it. Let's see. Get some processing power back that way. Ah, yeah, here we go. Okay, great. So the point I was trying to make, and I'm on a computer with no graphics card now. Now that I have open source Warcraft 3, I can do whatever I want. You know, I can say I'm going to play as Enlightened Tide. They're basically like the Naga. I didn't make that picture of that Murloc. That's off of the internet. Credits to whoever drew that. Some guy. I found it on Google image search when I was a kid, 10 or 15 years ago. I don't remember where I got it from. It's probably a genius. But it's definitely not AI art. I'll tell you that right now. Whoever drew that thing actually drew that thing. They were somebody smart. They were working really hard. I hope that we remember them when we all die. Alright, so here we go. We're loading in. Look at that. I can play Warcraft as the Naga, one of the 6 races in my open source Warcraft game that I'm playing from source code. You know, so when I talk about open source Warcraft as in the past, I kind of feel like I'm not entirely wrong here, because nobody's going to play this. You know, if I put this video on YouTube, some people will be like, oh wow, that's so nice. It really makes me feel warm in the stomach that this guy has his open source Warcraft, he rewrote it where he can put his Naga on there and all this crap. But no actual people probably are playing this. I actually had a guy who was actually asking me to play this recently, and it didn't seem like, what is this? Stop this. What are we doing here? They weren't really letting me give the guy this thing. Is this, they just, yeah, okay. I don't really think I need that many workers. I think that the gold mine's too close. The like distance from gold mine thing is not the same. I don't have the code for the original. Anyway, so here we go. Here's my you know, my game I wrote in Java. It looks like Warcraft, but it does look like Warcraft, you know. And so in my life, I kind of win. You know, I feel like is that a big stretch for me to say, you know, I kind of sort of win. Some people are going to tell me, no, you don't win, and I'm going to say, I kind of do win. Oh, it crashed. I don't even know why it crashed, but I can probably fix it. There should be a log file, actually. So if I go into repos, War Smash code repos over here, get one of these. Yeah, get one of those. Let's see, what do we got? Logs. Yeah, it should not have crashed like that. That's really stupid. But open source Warcraft, I can figure out why it crashed. Look at that. All these other jokesters on the internet, they're playing Reforged that crashes. They have no idea why. They can't do anything. I don't know why either. Wait a minute. What do we got here? What is this? Okay, this is today's date. The 12th of April. That doesn't make any sense. It's in the wrong folder. So we're playing out of the wrong folder, which tells me that probably I need to look for Warcraft, this thing, that one maybe? No, I think I'm in this folder. There's some kind of folder here, probably some sort of logs folder there. This is downloads, Heaven's Fall folder. Yeah, here we go, okay. This one, great, what do we got? Okay, error file, boom, cannot read bounds because node is null, world collision translation in the quad tree. So, some horrible nonsense happened here with that. That is some really horrible nonsense. Somebody did something. I don't know what they did, but they did something. This is really some horrible nonsense. I don't want this. I don't want this problem. Cannot read field bounds because node is null. Yeah, some unit was moving, and then it exploded. I guess we could go and look at line 128 of quad tree, but it does make you wonder, is this the thing that we were intersecting with, or the thing that we were intersecting? Okay, so this is the other reason why if I say that it's not in the past, someone might be right about that, right? So, because node is null, so adding the node is null, so we're adding the node. So this means we created, somehow there was a construction of a unit, probably, who was absent any bounds, which does kind of get back to, if you're going to call add on the unit with null, you know, what is the situation that we do that? And you would hope that we would never do that. But we did do that. So it was on translate of a unit. A unit started moving who fundamentally didn't have bounds anymore. So that seems kind of wrong. Yeah, and why did that happen? That's a good question. You could imagine in some concept of unit, we have some concept of translating where it is. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they got rid of it. The CIA took away my movement concept on the unit. What are we talking about here? Okay, I guess it's set point. Set point, check unstuck, and the move behavior. But basically, this thing calls to set point, right? And so when it does that, there's a point here where we translate on the collision. Right, collision.translate. And then that, at some corresponding point, takes the bounds of the unit and translates it in a quad tree. And so what we're saying is that when we did that on line 39, the fundamental node that we found from the quad tree was null when we tried to remove the previous bounds of the unit. And it's one of these weird kind of questions. Like, obviously, this should not be null. In order for this to be null, something has to be horribly, horribly wrong in the software. And then you wonder, do you add, do we keep this as a crash case and do deep analysis of the crash? Or do I put in some kind of stupid hack to skip around the crash if it comes up, but then we're not actually fixing some fundamental logical error where this went wrong and I messed up the quad tree? So getting back to my question of life, did this happen in the past or does this happen in the future? And I suppose someone watching this video would say, okay, I am wrong, this did not happen in the past. The code that I was just running almost looked like Warcraft, but was not, because when I tried to play it, it exploded and crashed. So the open sourcing of the actual Warcraft 3 that would actually work would be something that happens as of yet in the future, because we don't have code that actually works. Okay, great. Unfortunately, if someone published the reforged source code, it wouldn't work either, because that's where we're at. I'm not even going to talk about that, but that's the reality. It has the same kind of problem. Okay, anybody who's played Reforged for more than 2 hours knows what I'm talking about. Except when it crashes in their case, they can't look it up. They can't be like, oh, it was the quad tree mathematics. Why was it the quad tree mathematics? We don't know. They can't even get that far because Reforged doesn't let them ask the question. I get to ask the question. I just don't like the answer. I wish the problem wasn't there. I don't know what problem that was, but I don't like it. I wish that problem wasn't there. So, okay, so we think that social media, okay, open source Warcraft 3, maybe in the future. But here's another problem. Okay, here's another problem. I think that, and I don't quite know what to expect with this, but I do think that somewhere a ways out here in time, there will be a time where we have, like, AI can rewrite Warcraft 3 instantly. Okay, now some people say, well, that will never happen because all of the AI is fake. And that's an interesting take. I've seen that, where we say, well, all of AI is plagiarism. It's just copying things from humans, and it's bad, and no one should use it. Unfortunately for the people who are proponents of that philosophy, I think that a bad technology that does nothing except for plagiarize existing technologies would be a technology that can rewrite Warcraft 3 instantly, because Warcraft 3 is an existing technology. So I sort of think that it's quite likely that we see that in the future. What that means is the only time that I get to enjoy rewriting Warcraft in Java as something that has any meaning to any humans at all, other than literal, silly entertainment, right, is this little part right here, or perhaps this part right here, because you could then say, this is from where I started to now. Perhaps it's not like finished, but there's some notion of prototype. So maybe that's actually what I should be doing, is this line should have, we should have like prototype over here. And this would be Okay, prototype, rewriting Warcraft in Java. I'm just going to say prototype rewriting Warcraft, actually. Okay, so that sort of makes sense, right? There's only this little window in human history where what I'm doing is of any consequence at all. Beyond that, you could imagine like somebody wakes up tomorrow, and they start looking. They go to a history museum, and they get a telegraph, and they suddenly realize there's a new way you can build a telegraph machine that would actually be faster, better, and more user modifiable than any telegraph machine ever built before them. And we could sit and look that up. I can look up, let's look at a telegraph machine. Telegraphs. They're not even telegraph machine. Okay. Yeah, these things, right? Okay, here you go. So this is some kind of telegraph wires? What about telegraph wires? Yeah. Okay. Sure. So I guess there were like telegraph wires back in the day, and then eventually they figured it out or something. I don't actually know that much about telegraph machines, to be totally honest with you. Telegraph machine. So, the interesting thing when I think about all this, and if you get where I'm going with this, right, is that you could have a human being who wakes up today and invents the greatest telegraph machine ever created. But it doesn't matter because no one cares. They're walking around with cell phones. They've got iPhones in their pocket. They're on TikTok. They're scrolling. They're doom scrolling, talking to their friends. And then somebody walks by and says, "I've made the greatest telegraph machine ever." They would just burst out laughing. It's like, what? Okay, great. You made a great telegraph machine. No one cares. It doesn't matter. They're not going to use it. No one is ever going to use it unless if they're doing it for the express purpose of like historical reenactments, kind of history, education, entertainment, which has this other problem that my rewrite of Warcraft doesn't work the same way because I was just making stuff up. Like that quad tree that failed. I should fix that. But I'm not even sure if the original Warcraft used a quad tree. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. That was just, I did a quad tree for my collision because I thought that would be fun to learn about quad trees. So you have this problem, fundamentally, that even a historian would not want to use what I created. They would actually want to use the CD. They would go and they would get the physical disc of Reign of Chaos or whatever, Frozen Throne. They would put that disc in a some kind of history museum computer, and they would turn it on and they would run it. And so that they're going to use the actual one to do that. Why would they use my rewrite? The rewrite would have to get pretty good. You'd have to go pretty far for even those people to want to use it. There's not really very many people who are going to want to use it. So in that world, and that's how things work. That world I think is the one over here. The world over here I think is the world where there will be zero incentive for anyone to use it because they will just ask AI, and it might even be that actually the zero incentive to use it stuff. Maybe I'll make a new layer. Is going to happen first before the AI, right? That we'll get to this world where the way that humans entertain themselves no longer involves computers, PCs. They'll say those are for old people or something. Everybody's going to be on their phones as their sole way of doing business or something. I don't even know how that works. But if they're doing that, then you could imagine. I guess that would be how it would be. So somewhere in here, the yellow part, stops working. It stops being something that other people would, somewhere in here, ever play, right? And right now they're not playing it anyway because most people are just playing Reforged if they're interested in that kind of thing. So rewriting Warcraft is sort of this giant, timely meme that I do on my YouTube channel, and I understand that. That doesn't really bother me. I feel like for me it's like for the journey. I was enjoying the journey. I do want to fix that quad tree thing. That really hacks me off. I thought I fixed that years ago, but it's the journey. I'm fixing the quad tree to entertain myself. I'm not really fixing the quad tree for the other people because I know that they will leave me behind. It is inevitable that they will leave me behind. They don't care about what I am doing, and if they do, that might even hold them back. So that's interesting, right? Okay, that's interesting. But what else do we know about this future? Because once you get to this future, I don't know what to do. Okay, there are other things in society that are going to go horribly wrong before we get here. So then we're back to what is actually going on? What do I know about what is true and what is not? And I think the answer might be a relatively small number of things. I don't know everything. I was just kind of having fun. Some people think that it's some kind of sign of tremendous smartness to be doing Rewrite Warcraft. I'm not so sure about that, but it is a sign of entertainment. Definitely entertainment. In fact, when I talk about entertainment, I'm going to be honest with the internet right now. Sometimes I just go on YouTube. This is real. I do this. I just go on YouTube and I just watch my own stuff. Like the best one is definitely this one. And I watch this like on loop, where particularly this song and this part right here, it just, to me, it is like the cliche take on the song is good. It's an epic caricature of my interaction with Warcraft. The music is good. It's like making a statement. When I realized, when I was making this video, I don't think the internet knows this. I don't even know if I know how to talk about it. When I was making this video, I was on vacation and it was good, but I was also kind of really going into the escapism element, trying to forget about a personal problem that I wasn't really sharing with the people around me that I had at the time. And I think because of that, and sort of thinking again about these problems of how long are the timelines on things in life, what do you get to do and what don't you get to do, to me there's always that sense that Activision, Microsoft, Blizzard exists to take Warcraft away from you. And anybody who's played World of Warcraft for long periods of time is going to know what I'm trying to say. I think people who have not played the game for a long period of time, you could probably skip what I'm saying. Maybe it doesn't make sense. But anybody who has played this game for a long time would know, they would understand that there is a sense, if you play a lot of Warcraft, and I'm not really sure I do anymore. I think at this point I'm pretty much just an internet troll. But if you play a lot of Warcraft, even or did at some point in the past, you get to a point where you realize that the people who own the intellectual property of the game are fundamentally at odds with the people who actually want to enjoy the game. And you would think that shouldn't be so, right? Like you could construct a narrative in your mind that, well, whoever owns the intellectual property of the game is on the same side as the consumer that wants to enjoy the intellectual property of the game, that wants to go into some kind of virtual world and pretend that they're an elf and run in circles and count the trees or whatever it is elves do. Elves, I guess. Sorry, I said elves. I was kind of making fun of myself here. Elves. You could imagine that those people were on the same side. That might be something that could happen. But I think in specifically the case of Warcraft, I don't really think they are. They go to tremendously great lengths to try to portray as if they are on the same side. I have personally seen YouTube videos of Ian Hazard-Costas, or whatever his name is, just literally looking at a camera and saying, "Thank you guys for your trust," because he wants all the people who play World of Warcraft to trust him as their king, or whatever, right? Okay, sure. But I think that I don't even know if Ian Hazard-Costas works on that stuff anymore. He probably quit. He's probably a quitter. Yeah, I don't know. So, like, I think that there is this fundamental divide between people who want to enjoy it and people who actually own it. And it's interesting a little bit to explore that because, like I said, you'd think it wouldn't be there. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I think there's kind of this imaginary battle. I've watched this video so many times for my own entertainment. I've definitely watched this video more times than I actually played the map. I mean, this is actually an uncut recording of me playing a single Warcraft map I made in Reforged Map Editor. I don't know if anybody knows that, but that is what's going on here, right? It's like, I think for a while I would push escape to go between World of Warcraft and Warcraft 3 interface, and then I started wanting to use Alt-Z instead. I don't remember why, or something like that, but I switched one out for the other. Oh yeah, it's because the escape key, I think, triggers, Warcraft 3 triggers made in, it's like cinematic skipped event triggers in Map Editor, so I wanted to make sure I had a different key press for toggling World of Warcraft UI. Anyway, that doesn't really matter, but I guess my point is, I've watched this thing dozens of times for my entertainment, and this idea that I just step in the teleport pad and I fly up to a three-dimensional necropolis on a Warcraft 3 map, it's just, for me, this really is, I mean, I used to dream about this kind of technology when I was a kid, and it was completely imaginary. Like, if you go here and you realize that the mini-map is like the World of Warcraft mini-map. I mean, I'm pretty sure when I was a kid, I actually made a map, or made a screenshot. I had Photoshop, and in Photoshop, for my entertainment, I put the World of Warcraft map as the mini-map on some character, and a zoomed-out photo of World of Warcraft as though that was the game world with the Warcraft 3 interface around it. I think I still have that photo somewhere. Not as a picture of any actual game that I could play, but simply as, the same reason that some people draw portraits of, I don't know, their music idols or people they really like, or some, just trying to stylize, imagine something because you're just sort of being creative. And now all these years later, I actually have the technology. I can just be like, oh, you know what, why don't I just load World of Warcraft interface on Warcraft 3? And I don't know if anybody else on Earth even has this technology. I'm pretty sure they don't. I published it on GitHub, but it's like one of those things that falls in that category where even if you ask the AIs, they're not going to be able to help you run it. No one is going to know how to run. Like, if you ask Google Gemini and you say, I'm watching this video of this guy, he's on Warcraft 3, when he pushes escape, he plays World of Warcraft, and then he steps in a teleport pad that warps him to a necropolis in the sky where he can watch one of those Christmas light shows. And you ask Google Gemini how to do that. Google Gemini is just going to lie to you. It's going to tell you lies. It's going to be like, oh, maybe you should try harder. Have you tried Warcraft Map Editor? I wonder, you should click through the triggers listed and see if one of the trigger actions says teleport unit to necropolis. Oh, there isn't one of those? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm an AI. I'm going to have to get back to you on that. Right? Like, it's going to spin its wheels and go in circles. We don't know how to do that. Humans don't. The whole internet doesn't know how to do this. This is completely unknown. This is basically fictional technology to most human beings on Earth, that you would make a Warcraft 3 map, and then inside of that map you would go in a teleport pad that would teleport you to the sky, and there would be a Christmas light show in the sky. It's completely fictional for most human beings, even though it was actually running on my computer, and this is just an unaltered, undoctored video recording of actually doing this. And so when I think about that, I guess it is interesting to think about where we are, where we're going. I don't have that long to enjoy what I created in this technology. They are going to take it away from me. It's honestly really wonderful to be alive at all, and I hope that my antics. I kind of play a character on YouTube sometimes, and I just say silly things off the top of my head, and I do sometimes wonder. Most of my life is lived as a consequence of supportive and kind people along the way, many of whom I have conveniently forgotten about as I got older, not because I intended to forget about them, but because of, I suppose, maybe a combination of social media and these other factors. And so it's very easy for our human focus to go, to one thing or the other, and not really be so much on what really matters. And so I do sort of think, in the same way that this kind of video footage, this kind of crazy idea of rewriting Warcraft and teleporting to the sky and a three-dimensional map made on a two-dimensional game that doesn't really make any technological sense even in the slightest, that kind of technology did exist on my computer at that time, in a very vertical slice fashion that will probably not exist on anyone else's computer, because the moment I stopped running it, it toppled over, like a pile of garbage, and collapsed. But I guess what I'm saying is, we should thank the people in our lives that helped us to get where we are, because one of the things that I sometimes do as an internet caricature of myself is just say, well, I rewrote Warcraft because I'm so smart, and that's sort of a joke. Learning about technology, learning about mathematics and vector graphics and so many other things, It comes as a consequence of a functioning society with educational systems and kind people all along the way at every level. Supportive adults raising the young people, and supportive educators teaching you things when you have questions. When I was growing up, I was lucky enough to have pretty much all of those things, and be in the right places at the right time, that I ended up becoming a person who could go on the internet and make a joke about rewriting Warcraft or whatever this is, and just do it. Just picture it in my mind and be like, what would be a fun game to play on my holiday? This, whatever this is, that, yeah. And I think we completely miss, like someone looks at this and they're wondering, like, okay, how much of this, how much of this is something that was accomplished by the person recording it, and how much was like just stolen technology off the internet, and how much was like AI enhanced nonsense, and those are good questions. Those are really good questions. But I do think it's interesting that oftentimes when we even try to consider answering those questions, our focus completely goes away from reality. And when we forget reality, we forget the good people around us. And I do sometimes wonder, is it social media or is it that forgetting of reality that got us to a world where we can no longer go on to Hive Workshop and make a model that looks as good as the sheep thing? And maybe we still do. Okay, so look at these. I don't know. Somebody's making the dwarf organ cannon. So here's a question. Is the dwarf organ cannon as cool as the sheep processor from 21 years ago? I don't actually know. I don't know. That's a good question. This guy is clearly having a good time, though, actually. That's pretty cool. Who made this? Gluma. All right, I bet Gluma's having a really good time. What do we got here with Gluma? Gluma resources. Oh yeah, Gluma is having a pretty good time. Here you go, Skink High Priest. So obviously there are some people having a good time with making stuff on Warcraft 3, but I don't know. Maybe it might be a little bit harder than you'd wish that it should be. That's conceivable. Well, Gluma made a Skink High Priest. That's cool. All right. Anyway, my point was sort of that somehow, and I'm probably wrong about this, but somehow if I type in sheep and I go and look at that sheep processor from all that time ago, I have my moments where I think that the technology in the past was the same, but the people using it were like more creative and healthy, and they came up with ideas that were really funny. And I don't know, I might be wrong about that. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't think we should forget the good people in our lives that helped us get to where we are. And I don't think that we should forget about where we're going. And I don't know where I'm going. I have this very little amount of time to enjoy screwing around in this, whatever this is. To be honest though, I am getting to a point in my life where I wish, I don't know how to say this because I think it's going to come off wrong, but in a world where I was obviously knowingly not working with other people very much, like the technology stack of what is going on in this video, which is obviously this extremely bizarre thing with a toggle switch that goes between World of Warcraft and Warcraft 3. That technology and everything that led to it and everything about it primarily is a combination of stuff I downloaded from other people, stuff I wrote myself for the express purpose of making this kind of thing happen, modifying Warcraft 3 in ways previously impossible to modify. And then, thirdly, a little bit of sugar on top of cool things made by GitHub contributors on the GitHub. And a lot of the times, just like with me having some kind of idea and just chasing that idea, GitHub contributors will have a cool idea to work on and they'll chase that idea. And I think that makes sense. One target goal for the technology of better Warcraft 3 modding would be, if you're going to run the game from source code where you can edit anything, you'd want the game to actually work. People don't play my Warcraft 3 thing because it's not totally Warcraft 3. So obviously in this video, as we were running all these units around, none of them had that quad tree crash from the units intersecting other units. I'm glad that didn't happen. But how do you get, selecting, here we have, instead of 12 units, we have 16 units selected, right? And how did I do that? Well, that's because over here, I don't even have the menu buttons, right? Upkeep, not yet implemented. There is no upkeep concept because I didn't program it into, this is not, you look at this and it's just a Warcraft 3 UI. It's pretending to be Warcraft 3, but that's all it is. It's pretend, right? It's not really Warcraft 3. It's almost like if you rendered a Pixar movie of how it would have looked if you played Warcraft, right? I mean, it's fundamentally my code is calling GL draw triangles or whatever, from these guys. Actually, GL draw elements, I think. Anyway, I'm calling these OpenGL functions on the graphics card to imagine how it would look if I played this version of the game with this sort of alien additional modding capabilities. And it's extremely far away from the original actual game, and so as a result, everything is a reinvention. And that has this upside of meaning that I can do these bizarre, different behaviors with it, right? And just be like, oh, why don't we just load in World of Warcraft UI? But the flip side of that is that it's a reinvention from scratch, and so some stuff works differently, some stuff doesn't work at all. It's just weird things happen that probably shouldn't be that way. Right, this scene, one of the enemy undead banshees automatically does an auto cast of curse that causes the miss on hit, so that you miss when you try to attack your enemies. Then we have a scene here. Let me see if I can increase the screen resolution on this. Go up to 1080p. We have a scene here where our hero character, runs up to a necromancer. Okay, we zoom out to Warcraft 3. We punch the necromancer. Okay, and we I'm screwballing around, so I'm trying to click the World of Warcraft buttons, which don't do anything. We zoom back out to Warcraft 3 over here. Look at this. We zoom back out to Warcraft 3. The text miss pops up over the head of our character because a banshee had cursed this character with curse, which for some reason double casted and buffed twice, even though that's supposed to be impossible. There's a curse, overhead attachment that would be on our character, but it spawned on the ground instead because the World of Warcraft character did not properly support the attachment points of Warcraft 3. So the cursor over their head is just an object on the ground. The mist text is popping up on our character, and then when we toggle from Warcraft 3 back to World of Warcraft interface, the mist text is no longer floating there because the invention of the floating text objects was in a sort of poorly done software way embedded into the Warcraft 3 interface and not in the World of Warcraft interface, even though you would have thought that a floating text component should have probably been embedded into the three-dimensional world that is shared between both interface program codes. It was not. Now, and these are things that even on Warcraft Reforged, for all its bugs, you wouldn't have those problems, right? Like, I don't even think you could turn off floating text on... Well, actually, Reforged might have added a turn off floating text setting, but it would be intentional. You'd have to say floating text off or something, right? In this one, it just broke apart because it's not... it's not an AI dream, it's a computer program, but that computer program isn't World of Warcraft and it isn't Warcraft 3, right? Like, it is fundamentally making fun of both of them. And maybe that's really all it does, and it's doing an extraordinary job making fun of all of them. And to be honest, just watching this makes me want to go find my code again and try playing this and run in circles. But getting the code going, like you imagine if somebody wants to play World of Warcraft, they click the game on their Battle.net launcher, they click play, and they get in the game. Getting this thing going, or this will be like the next hour. If I'm like, oh, I want to run around as Shelly the elf. Okay, an hour later, oh look, Shelly the elf, I'm finally running around. Like, ugh. It's so long. It takes so long, and you have to have Warcraft 3, and you have to have World of Warcraft, both downloaded on the computer, and you have to have exactly the right version. Neither of them can be the latest version. No. You have to have Warcraft 3 from 2011 and World of Warcraft from 2004. And if you have both of those, then this program will run, so you can pretend to be the ruler of your little world. It's fun, it's funny, but as much as it is a statement in my life that I sort of feel like we've constructed a society where people who want to enjoy the sort of rich universe of technology and these sorts of things maybe end up at odds with the intellectual property owners of the game. It is nevertheless the case that there's not a world here where the technology parody of the game like this is actually subverting the future of the game, right? Like, no one is going to play this, I don't think. There are some people who have tried to play this, and I do not think that they have succeeded in any meaningful way. It just isn't. So, anyway, what does that say about the future? And where are we going? And I don't know if I know where I'm going. It's an interesting thought for me if I should make better decisions. But one thing I've thought about, I've kept my YouTube channel going, and I've continued to make YouTube videos, even though I think when we think about computer security and the future of the world, I don't know where the world's going, but it's probably likely to end up that the world goes somewhere that isn't good. I almost think that seems more likely. You can imagine, like, there's two possible futures, right? Like, one is a future where the world is good, and like right about here you have some sort of like, awesome human utopia. Everyone is having a really good time and life is very good for them. That might happen. I don't know. I mean, maybe that's the future. I shouldn't say all doom and gloom. My life is pretty good, but I have a sense that some other people, their lives might not be as good as my life. I don't know that for sure, but I think it's possible. There's some rumors on the streets that might be happening. So when I think about that, I think that it is also possible that as we go out here, life might be worse before it becomes really good, or something like that. And actually, some of that might even happen out here rather than out here. So I'm not quite sure about that. You know, the future might have some downturns. It's another reason to see the good in the people that have helped you in your life. Remember the good ones, because there are good people in the world, and it's too easy to forget them. It definitely is. But I think that knowing that I'm not a really perfect person, and I should do a better job remembering the good influences in my life. In the context of my YouTube channel and people that want to care about this crap and see this as proof of heaven or something instead of just some really cheesed off guy on the internet who's questioning how long he's even going to live. I think that well, really, I think I should probably get a glass of water now that I say it. But in the context of this video, I think it's interesting to think about the future. I don't know what that holds. I don't know what to do. I personally, in my mind, something I realized from playing this silliness here, there was a video recorded. I actually think it would be extremely fun, and I really wish technologically that somebody would sort of, if we look at this as a prototype of a concept, I wish that someone would build that concept for real, where we have World of Warcraft interface, but the command bar things actually do different kinds of attacks, different kinds of abilities, and the bag buttons actually open different kinds of bags, and the targeting actually does target Warcraft 3 units. And if I could run around and use the targeting system of World of Warcraft, target the Warcraft 3 units, and hit the World of Warcraft action bar buttons in this kind of interface, fight with some of those Warcraft 3 units, and like collect objects from them, and basically have like the World of Warcraft-ish interaction with the 3D world, but layered into Warcraft 3's technology base that already exists, so that without me having to learn new things, I can go to Warcraft 3 map editor, draw a new map, click on test map, instantly it opens the game, and like this, press escape to play World of Warcraft is turned on in that game, in every single map that you play. But where this is now I'm starting to imagine things on top of what I have previously, right? In that kind of world, I think it would be really cool if, regardless of which Warcraft 3 map I click test map on or what kind of world I'm drawing, if I have the same World of Warcraft character whose items and abilities and action bar is actually saved on the local computer between play sessions. I know no reasonable World of Warcraft player would ever want that. To them, what I'm describing is a joke, because it's very important to them to have a distinction in their mind between cheating and not cheating, right? And so if you go with that imaginary distinction of cheating and not cheating, then it doesn't make sense that you would draw any kind of, go in, draw a map in Warcraft 3, run around on it as your World of Warcraft character and collect the items. That doesn't make sense, because then in their mind, you're just cheating. You could just draw a map that has all the items in a big pile and pick them up, and then you open your little bagnon or whatever, and doop doop, you have all the items. So then it's not, they don't care about that, because they have to care about a version of the game where, like the big server tells them some people have the items and some don't, and this is based on certain criteria of time input and dedication instead of creativity or something, right? Sure, and those people will keep playing World of Warcraft. That makes total sense. Okay, I don't know what this is. This is just me horsing around. I'm basically saying that when I think of a fun way to horse around, I think it would be a really fun way to horse around, to sort of finish this up, make these interfaces actually work, and then be able to go around and collect World of Warcraft items. Like, look at that, there's a dead ghoul over there. I should be able to right-click that ghoul, and it'll say the loot, or maybe it'll say unable to loot that corpse because it was killed by that knight over there. Like, that makes sense. But I think it would be really cool if someone did that. And honestly, this technology is probably 70% of the way there. You just have to hook up some of these action bar buttons. You can see they're already clickable. But we need to make it you can drag. So that's where you got to have the spell book, drag the icons out of the spell book. And I think the icons that should be in the spell book would be the abilities of the hero that are on the hero abilities list in Warcraft 3 object editor. I think that makes sense. So it all just circles back around, really. And that would be cool. I think that would be cool. Then, like I said, we're running out of time for someone to even do that, but it would be fun. I would probably play the heck out of it if I had that. Although, really, it's been harder and harder lately to have time to do stuff, because when I try to play the game, my quad tree crashes, and whose fault is that? But yeah, I don't know. So this was just kind of me talking about life and the future and stuff. I feel like I haven't reached the punchline. I didn't reach the conclusion. I don't know what I should do about all of this, but it's interesting to think about. And I hope that whoever's watching this video, you should probably you should probably think about who are the people in your life that you're really glad that they were there, and then thank them. I probably haven't done enough of that. There's some really good influences in my life that they probably don't get any credit. I go around pretending I rewrote Warcraft, making fun of stuff on the internet. They would probably be ashamed if they could see me today, but they are no less good people. I still think those are good people. Maybe it's just me that's less good. All right, Warcraft. I gotta go drink some water. You guys have a good evening. Last thought here for you for the day. I was thinking about the AI and how it's all going to go crazy. And from a computer security standpoint, we are going to see a future pretty soon. Actually, I think we're already in a future where AI could generate a video of me. You don't actually know that I was here saying all of this. It's very possible that the whole video to now was all AI generated. I can do something like trying to pick my nose to seem more human, but really the AI is going to catch on to that, and it's going to start generating, somebody that picks their nose in a video just the same way, right? So you live in a world where you don't even know if what you're seeing on the internet is a real human or not. And because of that, when I put a video of myself on the internet, or hundreds of videos of myself on the internet, I'm exposing myself to substantially great future danger, or maybe present danger, of people intervening in my personal life. If I try to get a job, if I try to do some work, they could intervene, they could AI generate me, and they could make my life really, really difficult. And I have had moments when I thought, should I delete the whole YouTube channel, everything, basically try to nuke my online presence, because you get to a point where you want to go dark so that the only interactions that you have with others are things that they could be confident are actually you, and nobody's training AIs off of you, because you don't really want that to happen. And I have kind of thought about that, and I guess I've been more or less of the opinion that it's too late. And recently I started thinking, I was thinking about in this sort of graph here, and the inevitable eventuality of death, and I was thinking to myself that in 200 years, in 1,000 years, when the world is beyond any level of anything I would recognize, and anything I ever tried to accomplish, any game technology or idea, it's probably long forgotten by everyone on Earth. I sort of wish that in that future, if there was an infinitely intelligent computer that, from my present day perspective, seems like it might be evil, or something. I sort of wish maybe the humans were the ones running the Earth, because I like humans, or something like that. And that's not really what's going to happen. But if you imagine an infinitely intelligent computer in the future, running everything, or something like that, I sort of think that being remembered by that computer when all the humans are dead, that might be preferable to being totally forgotten. I'm not sure. It's possible. It's a possibility. I don't know for sure, but I think it's a possibility. So that would be one reason to continue making silly internet videos in a post-AI world. But it's interesting to think, is it or isn't it worth not having an internet presence in 2025? Because if you don't have an internet presence, you're just probably going to be healthier and better off, and people around you might be better off. I don't know. I think that's possible. I'm not sure. Here you go. Maybe.